Good evening, LATAZ colleagues from wherever you are able to catch us. Welcome to our webinar series and welcome to session 1 of this series. Thank you so much for joining us and we are glad to have you here. Like we have been announcing, today we are starting with an interactive discussion linking teaching to assessment. We all know that as we teach, what we teach is going to be assessed at the end of the year or at the end of the course. And to help us unravel issues of assessment and teaching are very eminent men who need very little introduction. One of them is Chief Lazaro Sinkala, the Chief Examiner for English Paper 1. He is a seasoned teacher, examiner, and the author of English Composition and Summary for School Certificate. Next is Chief Kanyampamanda, the Chief Examiner for Literature Paper 1. If you just talk literature, you cannot talk literature in our Zambian setup without mentioning him. He's authored a book on poetry and has been chief for quite some time. Next is our very own General Secretary, who happens to be the Chief Examiner for Literature Paper 2, Mr. Charles Kavungo. We are also expecting Mr. Patson Mukuwa, Seso Languages Copper Belt, and the immediate past LATAZ president, who is going to help us with English Paper 2. We apologize he is unable to join us at the moment because he is traveling from national duties, and we hope as he joins us, we'll still be ready to interact with him. He's the team leader in English Paper 2. And so from this discussion, we are going to start with short presentations highlighting observations from the marking centers, things that affect our learners' performance in these subject areas. Once our presenters have finished, then we'll open the floor for Q&A, a question and answer session, where you, our audience, will have an opportunity to interact with our chief examiners. You'll be able to interact with them either through our Q&A. This application has a Q&A which we are going to launch when the time comes. So you can either use the chat box, the Q&A facility, or you'll be able to use the microphone to do that. At the moment, as you join, all your microphones are automatically muted so that we do not interrupt the speaker at each given time. Otherwise, thank you for joining us. I hope we will make the most of this session, from which we are going to extract future presentations on this platform. I am your host, Kanyama George. I hope you enjoy and benefit from this. So to start with, our panelists are going to speak in this order. We'll start with the Chief Lazaro Sinkala, who will start highlighting challenges from English Paper 1. He'll be followed by Chief Manda, and then Chief Kavungo will come in. Once they are done, we'll open the floor for everyone to interact with them and ask the questions, the burning questions. At this moment, I'm going to invite Chief Lazarus Sinkala to take us through his short presentation. Chief Sinkala, the floor is yours.
Thank you, George, and good afternoon, everyone. I've been given 5 minutes to just give a synopsis of the challenges that are experienced by the candidates who in turn are actually learners at school certificates. Suffice to say that when we are assessing English, we are basically looking at how the linguistic ability of the candidate. And we're looking, among other things, at do they have control in expressing themselves through the use of the variety and quality of sentence structures. You remember we teach a lot of structures from grade 8 to grade 12. So these structures, do they culminate into a continuous piece of writing? Also, the range and effectiveness of vocabulary, idiom, the control of expression by the use of punctuation, the appropriateness of paragraphing, and the use of links between paragraphs, sentences, and clauses, the frequency of the type of errors that they make depend to a large extent on some of these basic things. So what are these challenges that we face? These are challenges that are faced year in, year out. Challenges such as the spellings, the wrong spelling of words, wrong cutting of words at the end. Remember, the word is supposed to be cut according to the syllable, but usually I think we don't teach these things, and candidates usually just cut the words at the end anyhow. Poor punctuation and paragraphing. Paragraphing, we know that is supposed to be by indentation, and every new idea is supposed to be a paragraph, but you find that paragraphs usually are just jumbled up. Lack of understanding of several rules of grammar, the use of colloquial words, the use of short messages in composition writing. This has become very, very common because of the influence of technology vis-a-vis the phones, social media. People want to type, but they've invented their own way of writing, shortening the words. The infringement of rubric. Our paper, for instance, you section A and section B. Section A has 6 questions. The candidate are supposed to answer 1 question. You find that there's this good candidate who has answered 2 brilliant questions from section A, and they haven't attempted section B, and they've submitted that the question paper says answer 2 questions. That's infringement of rubric. Inadequate expansion of given points, and the lack of use of cohesion and coherence, especially in section B. So these are some of the challenges that continually affect the candidate that we face. Paragraphing lately has become a very big challenge. We need to know that paragraphing is by indentation, not block paragraphing. Last but not the least, on my short synopsis is section B. Lately, the past years has become a challenge in that we know that there are only 4 types of compositions: narrative, discursive, descriptive, and expository. And the rest are topics. But then we've had challenges where a question comes and then candidates don't know what it is, whether and which approach to use. We've had challenges where an account is asked, one is asked to write an account, and both candidates and teachers alike start phoning and finding out, when you ask an account, what composition is that? I think those are things that need to be taught in classes before the exams. And equally, and last but not the least, that we need to teach everything that is in the syllabus, because we've had challenges now where people have been teaching according to the way they've studied the style of examining, the style of questions that come, particularly in section B, where people for a long time tabulated that things like minutes, CV, whatever cannot come. I think let's teach what is in the syllabus and not teach just for exams. People telling learners that this don't waste time, doesn't come. Anything can come as long as it is in the syllabus. I think for now, I will rest my case. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you so much for that short but elaborate presentation. At this point, we are going to invite Chief Manda to also highlight some aspects from literature in English, paper 1. Chief Manda, this is your turn.
Is your microphone on? Hello, you can hear me?
Yes, please, carry on.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'll go straight into the challenges that our learners face and experience as they encounter the subject of literature in English. As we are aware, literature in English involves, first and foremost, reading and comprehension, if we took it that way. So challenge number 1 is basically linguistic competence. Most of our learners' linguistic competence is highly questionable. And as a result of that, they will read and not understand what they read. And if you're saying basically we are looking at reading and understanding, then you see a very, very serious challenge. If we come to authors like Wallace Shoyinka, for example, whose writing is basically in idiomatic expressions, basically translating stories from the native language, which is full of sayings of the wise and idiomatic expressions. So some of our learners would read and not understand what they have read. So that is serious challenge number 1. And in literature paper 1, we are teaching and examining poetry, and you can see that the same problem of reading and understanding and appreciating what they read again comes through. Because when you read a piece of poetry, again, which is written in a special kind of language, some of our learners are not able to interpret what they will have read, especially in poetry. Taking that a little further and maybe moving up to general prose. Again, the issue of linguistic appreciation comes through. Our learners will read and not understand, not fully comprehend, because they are the hidden messages that come through the use of the language. So as they read pieces of poetry, again, you find the use of literary terminologies and devices. These again are issues that create problem for our learners. Some of the literary terminologies and devices, though basic, as they might appear, some of our learners have no knowledge of most of these. And so the appreciation of the literary texts is actually a challenge. Moving on, we come into knowledge of text. Again, this might appear very basic things when we are talking about reading and understanding. You pick a novel, you read through it, and at the end of the day, you're expected to follow the story. Now, again, because of the poor appreciation or poor knowledge of the devices that we use in literature, you discover that the candidate will read and not follow the plot. For example, follow through the plot, which is the rundown of events from beginning to end. Again, if the linguistic appreciation is poor, it will be very difficult for a candidate to, at the end of the day, follow the story. So basics like the plot, the theme of the play or the story become difficult for the candidates to pick up, coming from their poor knowledge of language. So this will affect their appreciation or knowledge of text, if you like. And in literature paper 1, we have one text which is meant to be studied in detail, so the candidate needs to know the plot from beginning, the rundown of events from beginning to end, so that they can be able to position the given excerpt exactly where it fits into the story. Now, if that trend is not clearly followed, the candidate will be lost, and at the end of the day, be unable to answer the context questions that come through at the end of the day. So for us in paper 1, knowledge of text becomes extremely important. Yeah, and if the candidate doesn't have that knowledge, they won't be able to answer the context questions as it were. Then we go on to, I'll still go back to the literary knowledge of literary terminologies and devices, as I link this to the full appreciation of a text. If a candidate lacks this basic appreciation of the literary terminologies and devices, then again, they won't be able to clearly get the gist of the story, as it were. And they will miss what, for example, the characters are saying, because some of these characters will be speaking in figurative language. And candidates who are unable to understand the figures of speech, again, won't be able to fully appreciate the text, and it will be difficult for them to answer the questions, So from the beginning, they will not comprehend the story. And because they've not comprehended the story, they will not be able to even enjoy the subject, as it were. And that lack of appreciation and enjoyment of the situation makes the task of the teacher even more difficult, and the lessons will be dull at the end of the day. And we won't achieve what we want to achieve at the end of the day. That is appreciation of literature as a subject that enables a candidate to think through topics clearly, critically, and be able to analyze issues, as it were. So their reading and understanding of the text is actually hindered by this lack of knowledge of not just the text, but the technical aspects of the language, as it were. So in as far as we are concerned in literature, paper 1, language is very, very key. You know, we are teaching literature, but at the end of the day, it is the language that we are, in essence, teaching in order for the candidates to actually follow and enjoy the stories, as it were. I think for now, I will stop there, and I hope that will have generated some, interest from our listeners, and to enable them to ask further questions. Thank you very much for now. Hello? Hello, are we together?
Hello, Chief. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the highlights. At this time, I'll invite Chief Kabungo to also chip in on literature paper 2 aspect of the discussion. Chief Kabungo, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. From the point of view of literature paper 2, our domain is basically to try and find out how much the candidates understand the text, and then how well they can answer the essay questions. With us, it is the essays that we expect our learners, our candidates, to write. Now, these essays are going to be expected of them from understanding of the text. We are not very different from paper 1. We too are interested in candidates' ability to understand the text. They should pay attention to the themes contained in the text. We may ask a question on the themes, in one of the themes in the text. We may ask them about the characters. We can ask about that. We can even ask a question about the setting, or just the plot, as Chief had actually indicated in paper 1. So we may ask about a plot as well. All we want is our candidates to comprehensively bring out information contained in the text. So knowledge of the text is of paramount importance to us. And then the second aspect that is very cardinal to us is ability by our learners to answer the questions. They should understand the question we have asked them, and being able to answer the very questions without waffling or bringing in things that we did not indicate, we did not expect of them. Then they must do that in good, they should also demonstrate linguistic ability. So with us, it is 3 things: knowledge of the text, ability to answer the question, then in good language, of course. We expect our candidates to be literate candidates. They cannot do literature and they come out with good results if they cannot read and write. So we expect them to demonstrate their ability to answer questions in good English. Now, what are some of the challenges that we experience or we observe that candidates make? Number 1 is rubric infringement. So like we have in the syllabus today, we have 7 texts. Of these 7 texts, we expect every candidate to have read 3, novels. From these 3 novels, on each novel, we ask 2 questions. They choose one of them. Now, I don't know, perhaps it is thinking that if they answered both, then they would enhance their ability to score more marks. So you find that they infringe on that rubric. They will answer both questions in certain instances. So that one is a problem. It does not make them score high marks. It doesn't. It actually takes away from them because they have infringed on the rubric. Then the second observation that we make is our candidates tend to want to tell a story better than the author did. They are telling you a story about River Between, and they think they can tell you a better story than Ngugi did. So basically it is just narration that we sometimes encounter, different from the question. Like I indicated, ours is to expect our candidates to answer the question, answering the question by keeping in turn, they should keep to the question that we have asked them. So the material that they bring should be answering the question. Not everything that they think of in the text they should offload in that essay. It does not make them score good marks, no. The other problem that we see is illiteracy, like I indicated. They may have what to say, but they cannot express themselves very well. So candidates that do not express linguistic ability do not score very highly in the exam. Those that are able to express themselves do well. But again, there is the other problem with that. There are those that are very good linguistically. They cannot answer the question, they don't understand the material, but they think they can confuse the examiner by writing a very rosy essay in the exam. That way, again, we are able to see that they are not answering the question and they cannot sway us from failing them if they have not demonstrated understanding of the question and then answering it at the same time. Then failure to shape the answer to the question asked is another problem. The question is specific. Now, the material that they get from the text should also be in tune with the question, not to bring a point from chapter 1, another point from chapter 2. Anything they can remember, they can think of, is offloaded in the essay. That way, again, they do not do well. They should shape the answer to the question asked. All the points that they are offloading must be answering the question that we asked them. I've already talked about too much narration of a story in the book. Instead of demonstrating that they studied a particular text and they are bringing material, they begin to just tell us stories. That way, they don't score very high marks. Then, writing essays from the point of view of the teachers. We have a challenge of late where when teachers are teaching, you find that mostly they do not, the examples that they give are based on their understanding of things. Some of them historical, others political. So when we teachers tend to teach like that, we confuse the learners, and the learners replicate those wrong situations that we give our learners into the exam. And we see these things as we interact with their essays, and they don't score high marks. They give examples from especially political essays that are laced in political undertones. You can see that the teacher who was teaching these learners perhaps was highly political, or the learners are. And that way, they don't score highly in the exam. So as teachers, when we are giving examples, let us not give examples that are historical in nature, and we make our candidates tend to understand things that way. They are going to bombard us with things that are historical, not answering the question. That way, we find that our learners do not do very well. Be simple, teach the text, teach about the themes in a particular text, do the chapter by chapter analysis, let them understand what each chapter is about. Then as we discuss, ask them questions for active study, the learners are going to retain the material like that, such that even when we ask a question, they do not struggle. They will be able to retain the information that they studied in a particular text, and they will get that information to answer our essays. And as such, we will be on the same page smiling, because we also enjoy marking essays that are based on the questions we asked. So I think for now, that is what I can submit. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chief Kawungo, for that elaborate explanation. At this time, we are going to open the question and answer session. I am launching the Q&A feature on the app. And then you can use this one to ask your questions. You can also raise your hand, just raise your hand, and then we'll activate your mic so that you can ask your question. At this point in time, we'll invite questions. Make sure each question that you have is directed to a particular member of the panel. Okay, we already have a hand up. Let me just check whose hand is up. Dr. Monde, you can go ahead and make your contribution or ask a question.
Greetings, everyone. Thank you, moderator. My question is, I was not clear with the Chief Kabungo. When this child has answered both questions on either all for literature paper 2, how do they mark such and score? Thank you.
Chief Kabungo, that's, I don't know if you got the question. Please go ahead.
Yes, I do. I greet you, Doc. Good afternoon. Mine is still afternoon. Yes, we mark both. We will mark the A because it is either A, either one or. There is either or. So we'll mark both. We are going to record them. If it is on quiz desire, which will be maybe novel number 2, we are going to write N1, N2, and then we are going to put the two scores. For 1, how many marks did the candidate score? If they scored 12, we will enter 12 there. Then in B, again, we are going to enter, maybe if it is 7, we are going to enter the 7. But we will record, we are going to add just the 12 to the final grade, that they are aggregate that they are going to score. So we will mark both. Now, what did I mean when I said this does not help the learners? They waste time. You can see that the second essay that they wrote, they wasted much time. Instead of generating that energy into answering a second question on a different set of a different book, they have used so much time on the same book where they will just be marked, where the only one essay will be graded. The other one is going to be rubric infringement. It will not be given any marks. Even if they got 20 out of 20 in both, we are going to give the first one 20, the second one 20, but we will cancel the last 20. It will not be part of the final score. I hope this time I'm clear, Doc. Thank you.
Clear indeed, clear indeed. Thank you, moderator. Thank you, Dr. Kabungo.
Thank you so much. We don't have any question yet. There was, I think, Banda. Okay, yeah, Joseph Vute, please go ahead and ask your question. Please unmute your mic. Joseph Vute, your microphone. Okay, yeah, you can carry on, sir. Please ask your question or make your comment. Joseph Vute, your microphone is on right now. Please ask your question or make a comment. Joseph Vute, we cannot hear you. Let's move to Hamanyanga. Hamanyanga, you had a hand up.
Oh, yes, thank you, sir.
Please go
Good
ahead.
evening, everyone. Good evening,
Good evening.
Mr. Kanyam. I don't know if you are getting me. Hello?
Yes, please. Good evening.
Yes,
Thank you.
my question is on the composition. I'm not very sure which one of the chiefs was talking about marking composition. Paper one, that is English paper one. Yes, there was a scenario that was given where Elena just attempts 2 questions in section A without attempting anything in B. So I'm wondering what happens to such Elena, a candidate that only answers 2 questions from section A without any attempt to section B. What happens to such a one? Thank you.
Thank you, Hamanyanga. I think that one is for Chief Lazaro.
Yes, thank you, Amanyanga. Yes, we have such cases where a candidate attempts 2 questions from section A and does not attempt section B. Now, in such cases, there are 2 scenarios. One, first of all, it's rubric, quite okay. But one, we look at it as rubric as a result of poor timing, because there are some candidates that would genuinely, fail to interpret the instruction, and because it said answer 2 questions from this question paper, and they went ahead. Where we are convinced that indeed all the 1 hour 45 minutes were spent on answering these, we mark both questions, and we award, there are 2 scenarios, like I said, we award the better mark of the 2, okay? We award the better mark of the 2. and then we raise that mark if we are convinced that this candidate genuinely spent time on this. By the time they said, he wanted to go, he or she wanted to go to section B, it was time up. Such candidates, we raise the mark, which we mark out of 20 as normal, then we raise it by 3/5. However, in an event, we've had a lot of cases actually where there are two brilliantly answered essays from section A, and section B, somebody just scribbled a bit, an indication that someone was simply trying to evade section B because they didn't know how to handle it. That one, we mark the two and just pick the better mark of the two, and we award 0 to section B. I hope I've answered the question.
Thank you,
Yes,
Chief.
you have. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other question to any of the panelists? Mr. JB, you can either write in the chat or you can use the Q&A feature if you cannot speak. Any other question? Yes, Mr. Joseph Vute, please carry on. If you are using headsets, try to use the handset or the gadget is the microphone, because we can't hear you if you are speaking. Or just type in the chat box your question or your comment. Anyone else who has a question, please just raise your hand. We still can't hear anything from Mr. Vute.
Moderator George.
Part you didn't understand clearly or any? Yes. Yes,
I
Chief.
would suggest, in case there are those who might not know how to raise their hands, they can go ahead and allow them to speak without raising their hand.
Okay. Yes, there is a hand from Stan Lee. Please go ahead. Stan Lee. Please unmute your mic. Your microphone is muted.
Hello.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Vute.
This is Silengo actually.
Oh, oh, okay.
Yes, it's my understanding of the whole problem, I think, is that these challenges that are faced are coming from the junior secondary school. I don't know if my observation has been made by other people, I don't know, because in the recent past, up to I think the last grade 7 examinations, grade 8s were just pushed, whether someone has passed or not. And as a result, some of the learners that were taken to grade 8 who proceeded up to grade 12, I think did not know much concerning the writing and the like. Now, looking at the situation at hand and having identified the problems that the youth, the chief markers and the examiners are facing, how can you help us as teachers?
Hello, Mr. Silenge, thank you. Thank you for your contribution and for your question. Now, that one is not directed to any particular chief. There's a question, how can you help us? Does any one of you want to? Okay, Chief Lazar. There's also a question for you, I think, in the chat box.
Okay. With regards to Mr. Silengo's question, it's a very valid observation and a very valid question. However, it borders on policy. I think his question is how can we help ourselves mitigate that challenge of learners just being pushed into grade 8, whether they've passed or not. Now that borders on policy. I think, in my view, the best we can do is with the powers that be, to engage the policymakers and explain some of these
I think we have lost Chief Lazaro. Maybe it's a network issue. Okay, wait for him to come in and ask. But we have some questions. I think these are directed to Chief Kabungo. Can literature essays be written in point form? How does a student know that they have reached the expected word limit?
Well, I don't understand that an essay can be written in point form, and then the aspect of word limit is actually not very much of our problem. With us, if it is an essay that is written in paragraphs, in prose, should I speak? If it is written in prose, if a candidate has written 1.5 pages, it is expected that they would have exhaustively brought out the points that they need to bring out. Otherwise, writing 3 pages, they may just be retelling the story. That is the issue. But maybe what I expected from the questioner is to say, if a candidate has written in point form, not in essay form, what do we do? Maybe that. On the linguistic part of it, they have failed. On the linguistic part of it, they have failed. But if they have brought out the points that we expect of them, knowledge of the text there, we are going to mark those points and we'll give them some marks. But then
we teachers here, this is why we have meetings like this one. It is to try and help one another, guide our learners to avoid writing in point form. That is provided for in paper 1. Because again, with Chief Manda, if they wrote essays with him, where they were expected to just write points, where is Meza when he's talking to his cousin? The point there should just one word, maybe just a very brief point can be given there, not to write paragraphs. But for us in the essays, we expect our learners to exhaustively write and bring out the material. I hope I've answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Lazaro is back, but maybe before he comes in, there's another question. I think this one is also directed to you, Chief Kabungo, in the chat box from Medado. Is it okay for a learner to use proverbs and sayings when answering paper 2 literature, which can help answer the question?
Proverbs that are provided for in the text, yes. But idioms, yes. Idioms, even if they are not provided for in the text, because that is linguistic ability now to demonstrate that the language, the candidate understands. They are explaining a point and they bring in an idiom, or perhaps even a proverb that is not in the text. Well, that one, unless a situation was given, I'll be reluctant to comment on it. Otherwise, when they use expressions like idiomatic expressions and figuration to answer the questions, well, we appreciate that, because then they are demonstrating that they have the linguistic ability, and we award marks awesomely to such candidates. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Maybe at this point, before we come to NS, I would like Chief Lazaro to finish up his thought, which he was making when his network disappointed us. Please, Chief Lazaro, please, you can come in.
Thank you. I've just seen some questions directed at me in the chat box. The first one says, Chief Lazaro, what type of composition says give an account? That is an expository composition. As you are aware, expository composition means exposing the knowledge. It's an explanation. You have to expose the knowledge over something. And you cannot respond to that question if you don't know. So if it says give an account, it is an expository composition in which you are supposed to expose some knowledge over a given topic. So it's an expository composition. There is another question again directed at me. How do you examine a candidate who answers a proverb in a composition literally? Well, that is marked, first of all, we'll look at the linguistic ability, and in doing that, we will now come to the conclusion where we will say, okay, fine, this question has been answered literally, meaning it is actually not answered. There is what we call minor irrelevancy. We will mark it as if it is normal and then penalize by some marks. We know them ourselves. There was another one. Let me just finish those that are in the inbox. Okay, what is the minimum number of sentences a paragraph should have? Okay, in composition writing. Well, first of all, there is, I mean, you know, just to be blunt about it, we know that a paragraph is an idea, it's a new idea. And paragraphs, there is no limit to say, well, this is the minimum number of sentences or words. We know that a paragraph can even have one word. In the case of dialogue, for instance, a paragraph can only have one word. So the bottom line is a paragraph is an idea, an independent idea. As long as you introduce a new idea, you got to get into another paragraph and introduce a new paragraph. So there are no rules to say, well, it must have one sentence, two sentences, 10 sentences. I don't think there is such a rule. I don't know, George, if I've exhausted the questions that are directed at me.
I think you have.
Yeah.
I think you have. The other one, I think, is on summary. I don't know if you would like to touch on it. How many paragraphs should a prose summary have?
The prose summary is always one paragraph in the exam, because you are asked about one idea. That's all. So, for exam paper says a prose summary always is done in one paragraph. Whether it says talk about the advantages and disadvantages of such according to the passage, the idea there is talking about the advantages and disadvantages. That's one paragraph. And that's where now the link words such as however, contrasting words, would come in within that one paragraph. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Ernest, sorry, we had to put you on hold so that.
Hello.
Yes, please carry on.
Yeah, I wanted to find out on the candidates. I know we teach them to answer write on the question papers in one question per page. Like they don't put two composition on one page. Like they end in the middle and then they start maybe 2-3 lines after the other one. So what, as markers, what do you do to a student or pupil who does that? Do you award them marks or you deduct some marks?
Thank you. First of all, the page layout does not count in the assessing of composition. We are assessing an individual composition. So if a candidate writes and ends on the next page halfway and begins after a line or two, that's not a problem. You begin marking there as section B, as long as it's well labeled. And also, thank you for that question. Please, we don't encourage people copying the question in composition. What we encourage people is to write the question number in the margin. If a candidate in section A is answering question 5, let them write 5. If they're answering question 3, let them write 3. Then when they go to section B, let them indicate section B. That is all. So when you indicate section B or you indicate question 3, that will act as a title. That will act as a question. We will know what the question is. So let's avoid candidates. We've seen a lot of candidates laboring to copy the question and then they start answering. Thank you.
Okay. I think there is another one, which is, I think there are two. You have already touched, I think, on the other one. What is the minimum number of paragraphs? What number is a candidate expected to write? And does every composition require a title? I think these two are based on composition again. Chief Laza.
There is no minimum number of paragraphs per se. Like I said, every new idea will attract a paragraph. However, the basic writing is that a composition must have an introduction, the body, and the conclusion. So if in your body there's only one idea, then basically that paragraph will have 3 paragraphs. I mean, that essay will have 3 paragraphs. However, I repeat, there is no rule in writing that says, no, this should be the minimum number of paragraphs. It is the ideas that are coming on board that will indicate the number of paragraphs that are there. Worse still, if there is a dialogue, because every speaker is treated as a new idea and begins a new paragraph, you may have even 20 paragraphs in an essay because of the dialogue that is that is involved. There was an attachment to that question. What was it, George? What does it mean? Does every composition require a title? For assessment's sake, I must distinguish between classroom work and exam work. For exam work, the question number will act as a title. The question number, when you indicate question 6, we will know that this is the question that is being answered, and we know the expectation of that question. So let the candidates just simply indicate the question number they are responding to and start answering. Titles. Titles do not, I must emphasize this, titles do not attract any mark whatsoever. However, if the title is well written, everything is perfect, we will just reckon and we will form an impression that this is a good candidate. It will not attract a mark per se. However, within the title, for instance, if there is a spelling error, marking begins right there. We will reckon that this candidate doesn't know this is spelling. Okay? So it's important to just avoid in the exam, avoid the titles, let the question number act as a title. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. There was a hand from Obet Munkombwe. Now I can't see this person in the meeting. Munkombwe, Obet. I think we have lost. Huh?
There is a question on paper 2 literature here. I don't in the dialogue.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, Madado. Yes. Okay. Yes. Please
Yes.
Go ahead, Chief.
Yeah, there is a question here to say, when answering literature paper 2, is a learner penalized when they write without title? Like Chief Lazaro has said, the title is the number. The text, the novels, the texts that are examined in the syllabus are numbered 1 to 7. That is just what we want. So no, what title? There is no title that we expect other than just indicating that this is question 1, 1 or 1, 2, because there is either 1 or. So you can indicate 1, then 1, or 1, then 2, or 4, 1, 4, 2, 6, 1, or 7, 2, just like that. Those are the only things we expect, no titles. And even if a candidate has not put the title to answer the question, we don't penalize them because we don't expect any. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Unfortunately, we lost the one who had a hand up, probably maybe due to network issues. I hope he's the one come. Oh, he's here. Okay. Mr. Obet. Did Obet? Okay. Obet Munkombwe. Please, you had a hand up before you exited the meeting. You are free now to ask your question. Please carry on, sir. We seem to have a challenge with this, Mr. Munkombwe. Okay, let's go to Kingsley. I suppose this is Mr. Tembo.
Let me come back.
Okay, Mr. Munkombwe. Mr. Tembo,
Thank you.
Yes.
My question goes to Chief Lazaro.
Yes, please.
On summary writing. There are situations where the instruction is given that the summary has been started for the candidate. When, as teachers, we always advise our pupils to write a title for every summary that they write. So what happens in this case when the summary has been started for the candidate and the candidate is just expected to proceed? So what is the standard practice? Should the candidate write the title and then we copy what the examiner expects him to start with, or they just write without the title? I submit.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, I might not be the right person to take that question because I'm not a paper 2 specialist, and I'm sure there are paper 2 specialists in this house. I know Dr. Monde is paper 2. However, I can answer from the ignorant point of view, like my colleague is, from what I know, is that first of all, in the exam summary, the title is not required, just as it is in composition. I think from what my colleagues have told me is that the title should just be to help the candidate raise the points on their rough piece of paper. But when it comes to writing, they don't usually indicate the title. Suffice to say, when the summary is started, just like a composition, when it is started, those words are not counted as part of the words for the candidate. If the summary says you answer in 110 words, and the summary has been started for you, those words that have been used in the startup are not counted as the candidate's words as part of the 110. I think that's what my colleagues in the paper 2 have told me. But with regards to title,
questions, I think, in the chat box.
It is not necessary.
Okay.
May I take advantage of this slot to answer the question on letter writing in chat box?
Yes, please. There are actually 3 of them in a row directed to you.
Okay.
In the chat box.
Which
yes.
is the first one? The first one is about
so
letter writing, I think.
Formal letter. The next one is about speech, I think. And then the other one on minutes. Yes.
Okay, when writing a formal letter, is it advisable to indent the salutation and a reference? It is advisable, yes. However, in fact, it's not a reference, it's a subject. The subject which we write as RE, what would determine the indentation is the length of the subject. If it is so long, you're not going to indent it. You can block it because it's so long. It is from one end to the other, or it's even protruding it to the next line. But then there's nothing wrong in you indenting it or not indenting it. The same with the no, with the salutation, you are not supposed to indent it. Okay, with the salutation, that one is strictly supposed to be blocked by the margin. Dear Lazaro. So the D must be blocked. Which is the other question? On speech writing again, should it be written in block letters or small letters in an exam? It should be written in a normal way of writing, small letters. Of course, when beginning the sentence, the first letter should be blocked. In short, a speech is a piece of writing like any other piece of writing. So it should be in normal writing, small letters, except for the titles, which should be blocked. And then a speech title has key components. that should not miss. Is it okay for candidate to skip the title? It is not okay. For the speech, that's a requirement. You begin with the title. Speech delivered, blah, 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 blah. Just like it is in minutes, it is a requirement that you begin by the title, which is actually a summary of what the speech or the minutes are about. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. At this time, I'll ask Mr. Kingsley, please, you had the hand up. You can make your contribution or ask your question. Kingsley, please unmute your microphone and make your contribution or ask your question. Okay, Kingsley isn't saying anything. What do we have? Okay, there's a question here on the writing of minutes, and I think it has to do with the title, writing a title. So in short, I think people are confused between section A and section B, where title writing is concerned. Chief Lazaro, please clarify on that one.
Well, in section B, depending on the journal that is being tested, if it is a report, you cannot run away from a title. If it is an article, you can't run away from a title. If it is minutes, you can't run away from the title. Particularly section B, I think that one is guided writing, and those guides should be followed. There is a question from Joseph in the chat box. And on minutes writing, is there a format that should be followed when writing minutes in an exam? Yes, just a general forum. Just a general format should be followed, where you begin with the title, then present, apologies, then absent, then the opening remarks. That general format should be followed. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. So we should be closing the meeting in the next 10 minutes. So if people have questions, this is the time. You can ask your questions. Even those with contributions are welcome.
Hello, George. There's a question for me in the inbox.
Yes, from Barbara Nurenda. Please go ahead,
yeah,
Chief.
From Barbara, it says, in letter writing, what is the correct way of writing reference? Some writers say it should be capital R, capital E as Ray. Others say capital R in MK textbooks. Okay. First of all, I'm glad you've cited MK. But if you read Lazarus Sinkala, it has explained the two. They are both correct. What is important is that if you write capital R, capital E, it means everything that you write in there should be in the uppercase. It must be in capital letters. If you write capital R and small e, it means what you are going to write, only initial letters of the content words will be capitalized, the way we write titles when we use mixed lowercase and uppercase. Basically, that's what it means. Otherwise, both are correct. It's now the orthography that would differ. Capital R, capital E, it means everything should be capitalized. Capital R, small e, it means only initial content letters, letters of the content words must be capitalized.
Thank you, Chief. Do we have any other question? Kingsley, are you able to say something now? Kingsley, you have had your hand up for some time. Are you near your microphone now? Please unmute and then you can go on and make your contribution or ask your question. Kingsley, okay. It seems Kingsley is unable to talk. Do we have any other question or contribution? Any questions? There's a question from Ronan Patrick Ziambo in the chat box. What is the total number of compositions that should be taught at senior level? Interesting. Chief Lazaro, that should be yours.
George, you can answer that question. Yeah. You teach all the compositions that are in the senior syllabus, from grade 10 to grade 12.
Yes.
Yeah. All the compositions, just interact with the syllabus, go to the composition section, all the compositions that are tabulated there, teach them. Anything can come from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Okay. Do we have any more questions? Let me check the chat box. Okay, so this one is from Sama Kiwala, that some of the points he shared be important. We had challenges with the network, especially on speech and minute. Can Chief rather? Okay. NS, you can take advantage of this time and ask.
Hello.
Is Dr. Monde. After that, Dr. Monde. Yes, NS.
Okay. I wanted to find out on statistics composition where it involves numbers. The learners are taught not to copy certain numbers that are below a certain number, whether it's 0 to 10 and stuff like that. But some candidates find it very difficult and they tend to put those. What kind of penalty is it given? Is it, how many marks are they penalized for that?
Chief Sinkala, I think that's yours again.
The question is, how many marks are penalized from a candidate who fails to write appropriately? First of all, what we use, this is something maybe I need to have a separate presentation on just marking. What we use is a impression marking, where we form an impression and those impressions are graded in A, B, C, D, you know, and from those classes, we are able to attach the marks. So a candidate who would fail to write numerals correctly, somebody, it cuts across the board. It will form an impression that such a candidate cannot be an A candidate, cannot be a B, C, or rather is a D. And from that, we know the marks that are allocated to such classes. So it's not we don't mark to say, okay, let me give an example from letter writing. If we were marking a letter, a formal letter, and the candidate has left out the receiver's address, we will not say, this candidate has left out the receiver's address, 1 mark out or 2 marks out. This candidate has messed up with the salutation, 2 marks out. That's not the way we examine the papers. We use impression and form an impression and grade the script according to the class that it is in, and in that class the marks are already tabulated.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Dr. Monde.
Thank you, presenter and moderator and everyone. I have a cross-cutting question to our people presenting today. One, why should we have the similar observations, if I may take it that way? I got from Chief Lazaro, who was saying we have similar challenges with our pupils year in and year out. And when you speak like this, my colleagues, you are the leaders who we believe you have what it takes to sort out these problems. Where could be the challenge? LATAZ, where are you? The year in, year out English, I think I got it very well. It didn't sit well with me. Moderator, that's question number one. Number two, literature and English. Before the 2013 revised the syllabus, compare and contrast. Which one were we doing well before and now? If that is answered, I should be able to make an addendum. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc. Year in, year out, same problems. That's food for thought. As LATAZ, that's why we are bringing these discussions so that we try to sensitize and educate each other and together find a common ground on how to address these issues one by one. I don't know if any of the panelists has a response. Chief Kabungo and Chief Manda, there is a question: when are we doing better before the papers were split? Is it still the same, or are we worse than we were in terms of performance in literature and English? That's Doc's question. Any of the two of you can come in.
To answer the question that Dr. Monde asks, before 2016, actually, not 2013, because the two-tier paper was first examined in 2016. And then before then, we had we had just one paper. Back then, the challenge was that our candidates were fatigued because it was seen to be too bulky. But today, in terms of performance, we can say that performance has improved. That's what I think I can say, slightly improved. Though what has been the trend has been that mostly after the candidates have failed to answer more questions in poetry and so on, which they sometimes felt hit them below the belt, coupled with Kongi's harvest that time, you found that most of them, or quite a number of them, did not turn up to sit literature in English paper 2. But those that managed to write both papers, to answer the question simply, the performance has improved if I compare with how it was back then. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Kabungo.
Chief Manda is here. Maybe he may as well chip in.
Oh, please.
Yes, basically, I think there is a slight, I want to underline that word, improvement, which if only we as teachers can address the issues of poetry and literary terminologies and devices. I think that's the only area. And if teachers taught this section very well, then we'll be seeing flying colors in literature paper 1, because I think of the two, it is the easiest, to pass. So just those two sections, the poetry section and the literary devices and terminology, if those are sorted out, because that is where most of our candidates have issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, from the chat box, people can address these two issues and then we will close for today. So there seems to be a gap between the primary and secondary level. Children in grade 8 come literally not knowledgeable of basic writing skill, alphabet, and vowels. As such, we find ourselves teaching these the first term. And what are we doing? What are we doing to help the situation? Okay. And then the other one is Medado says to the presenters, why don't you send reports on the errors and performance to the schools so that the results improve? I should assume that this participant doesn't have access to the chief examiner's reports. I think ECZ sends these to the district unless something else, unless I am mistaken. When they are compiled, I thought the ECZ sends these to the POs, districts, and the schools. Chief Laza.
Yeah, thank you. This is a very valid question which keeps popping up. I think there is a very big gap. ECZ compiles all the chief examiners' reports into a booklet, which is distributed to through the channel, government channel, where it goes to POs, PO, DEBs, schools, meaning head, then HOD, various HODs, teachers. I think there is somehow where things don't just move. Otherwise, I know ECZ always releases those reports to POs. I think maybe we just need to engage ECZ to find a better way of sending these reports, more so that they have a website. Maybe if they can offload them on their website so that people can download them from there. Otherwise, this route, I think, in my honest view, is that it has failed. Someone somewhere receives and sits on it. I think that's my submission. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Yes, I think there is a gap somewhere. And I think if there are heads of departments here in this meeting, you need to probably through the head teachers follow up these reports. ECZ releases these on a yearly basis. Every time after an exam, there's a review meeting. Chief examiners submit reports, and they are compiled in one report, which everyone is supposed to have access to. If we do not have them, probably we need to start following up through our channels. Okay, I don't know if, I think I saw there was this protest on social media. I think this one is addressed to, let me say, this is the last concern to be addressed. The rest to be pushed to the next presentations. There was a protest, someone has put this in inverted commas, on social media over the 2020, I think they mean the 2025 prescribed texts. Any update? Will the syllabus change, or should we go ahead and teach the texts in the syllabus? I don't think there was a protest on social media per se. It's there was an article by LATAZ which went a little bit viral, and people want to know if there is anything that will change or people should brace themselves and buy these books. Chief Kavungo and Chief Manda.
Yes, can I react?
Please go ahead, sir.
And as far as I'm concerned, our duties as teachers is to teach the syllabuses that are afforded or accorded to us. The role of ECZ or examinations is to actually prescribe what should be examined. And as teachers, we need to then prepare to teach the syllabus. It's not our duty to question the syllabus which is given to us. So let's brace ourselves and teach the syllabus that is given to us. It is not our duty to question. I think that's my contribution.
Thank you, Chief. Chief Kavungo, do you want to add anything?
I don't think there is anything I can add because it has been ably explained by Chief Manda. Okay. We don't have to perhaps in fact, one thing I can only add is if we are going to begin to be antagonistic, then we shall be seen to have vested interest somehow. So ours is to teach what we have been given. These books are there and we have read them. What is so difficult about you teaching animal farm today? Let's just read the books we have been given and teach them. Thank you.
May I add, moderator, may I?
Oh, Chief Lazarus, carry on.
Yes, I've loved the way Chief Manda and Chief Kavungo has responded. I think that is my take as well. Equally, I want to thank Chipo Vulea. He's a very good composition writer. He has put protest in inverted commas, not that it was a protest, but some kind of cry. Thanks, Chipo. However, just to add to what the two chiefs have said, you see, let us not come out as if we are being antagonistic. You know, yes, if we have a grievance, I think the channels are well tabulated. Social media, even if you have a good point, this I must tell all of us colleagues, even if you have a good point, if you go on social media, you don't expect any normal administrator to react or act in your favor. And that's why Chipo is putting it, protest in converted commas. No leader works under duress. You know, no leader works under duress. So the books have been prescribed. Come next year, it's not even supposed to start teaching them now. Come next year, we follow what has been prescribed for 2025, 2028, and start teaching. Thank you.
Thank you. So at this time, we are going to do our closing remarks. Any points of emphasis? We'll start with Chief Manda, then Chief Kavungo, then Chief Lazaro will conclude. Then afterwards, I'll give my closing remarks for this session. Chief Manda, any closing remarks or words of caution, encouragement to our teachers? Chief Manda.
I want to begin by reacting to a concern raised by Dr. Monde. Yes, year in and year out, the same problems. Reports are written, and I think the channel is the correct one because the PEO is an interested party. He also needs to appreciate what is happening to his candidates, because there is schools and the candidate are his candidates. He wants to appreciate what issues are being raised so that he can then take on his schools and involve them in issues or areas that needs addressing. So that channel from PO to DO, or is it DEBS and so on and so forth, is a correct channel, because at all those levels, the officers need to appreciate how their candidates or how their schools are performing, and then they'll take it up, and in the new era, there will be those teacher interactions, where teachers will sit and interact and brainstorm on how they can sort out the challenges. But if this channel is broken somewhere, then again, as head teachers, as heads of departments, we know there's this channel. Let's make follow-up so that we retrieve those reports, which ECZ ably circulates every year after each examination. There was an issue of us receiving illiterate candidates at grade 8. And it is a serious issue when they get to grade 10, whereas in as far as reading is concerned, because literature is reading, and we have candidates who can't read. So it's up to us, as we receive the illiterate grade 8s, to put interventions, on how to prepare them so that they become literate by the time they get to grade 10, where they now begin to read those volumes of text. So we can't throw them away. It is our challenge. We are with these children, and they must pass, and that is why we are trained officials. We need to prepare these children for the exams. If it means spoon feeding them so that they become literate, let's do that. I think that is what I want to say. But for paper 1 literature, as I said earlier on, it's a question of reading and linguistic competence. If they don't have that, we need to prepare them so that they're able to read and comprehend the text before them. I think I'll end there. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Chief Kabungo, closing remarks.
Yes, I want to just make a clarion call to our colleagues, the teachers, to make sure that as we go back, as schools reopen tomorrow, let's make sure that we have taught the books, the texts to the learners. Not that we have narrated the stories in the books. There's a difference between narrating a story in Cause of Desire, in Song of Lawino, in River Between, in Chrysalids, and all those texts that are in the syllabus, and teaching them. Let's get sections of the texts and explain, discuss with the learners, let them understand, bring out the themes contained therein, characterization in the text. Let's pay attention to that. The literary terminologies, if any, in the text that we read. I'm saying if any because not all of them have, and I will not cite any examples for obvious reasons. So let us make sure we teach the learners. As they write exams this year, we should see a different trend where candidates will answer questions, not just narrating the story. I think that is what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chief Lazaro.
Thank
you can do with a question. I think there's something in the chat box as you conclude.
I want to address it. It's about minute writing.
Yes.
Just my last remarks are that which should address Nsama Kiwala's query about minutes, is that please, colleagues, feel free to interact with me even outside the webinar series. I think you all have my number. Those that might not have my number, it's the WhatsApp number. Is there on any of the LATAZ WhatsApp groups? It's 0977 671556. I think if you have concerns, let us interact, and then we guide each other. Equally, I think most of the answers to the questions that people are asking is contained in the Green Book, the English Composition and Summary for School Certificate by Lazarus Sinkala. Allow me also to say there is a book that is being printed, which is authored by Lazarus Sinkala and the Kanyampamanda, Chief Lazarus and Chief Kanyampa. It's it will be a series. The first one that will be out on the shelves in I think in 2 weeks' time is called Perspective Volume 1, Song of Lawino and Woyengi. Please, let's refer to that book, and where there are queries, you can engage either Chief Manda or myself. Otherwise, thank you very much. You keep building us, and you keep sharpening us. Thank you so much, and God bless everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. On behalf of the LATAZ National Executive Committee, I would like to thank our panelists for ably handling these matters of professional development and for responding to all the queries that came through in today's session. Allow me also to thank everyone who made time to attend this, our first session. This platform is meant to help all of us be better teachers, deliver the syllabus to our learners in the best way we can, to share knowledge, expertise, and techniques on how to handle various aspects of the syllabus in literature and all languages. So next week, we hope to engage the chief examiners for Zambian language, French, and hopefully we can get someone from English paper 2 for further questions, so that we can also clarify matters in those areas. As you may be aware, LATAZ is not only for English and literature teachers only, it is also for all teachers of other languages taught in our Republic of Zambia, and so we would like to involve them as well. From this, from